Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome to Restoravet History Unfiltered, the podcast where we cut through the myths, skip the sugarcoating, and dig into history as it actually happened. For our very first episode, we're going big with a deep dive into World War II. The battles, the leaders, the weapons, the decisions, and the turning points that shaped the modern world. And I'm not doing it alone. Joining me today as my co host and guest is a fellow World War II nerd. So expect plenty of debate, some strong opinions, and probably a few rabbit holes along the way. This is Restoravet History Unfiltered. Let's get into it. So, World War II nerd, do you want to introduce yourself for me?
Yep. My name is Dustin Morellis Micco. Um, always loved World War II. It's just always been my passion. Um, I'm 30 years old. I have a son with another kid on the way,
Congratulations.
and yeah, that's basically me.
All right. Um, what got you into World War II?
So ever since I was real little, my grandpa's always been a big influence in my life, and he ever since probably since like around kindergarten, he like brought a lot of military stuff home and kind of talked to me about it because he was in the military as well, like the late 50s, early 60s. But I'm not sure. We used to watch the History Channel. I think maybe that's where I seen World War II. And since that, it's just I remember, just wanting to learn more about it. I'd play outside with my fake M1 Garand and run around. And I don't know if you remember, but when we were in school, I used to wear a full military uniform. And
Sometimes, yeah, I do recall sometimes you would wear some World War II memorabilia.
they actually sent a letter home saying I couldn't wear it anymore. But
The
I don't know. It's
downfall of
ever
our
since
school.
that, as I got older, probably around seventh or eighth grade, I really started getting into the books a lot more and studying online. And then for a little bit while there, I was trying to interview vets and stuff, and just continue reading about it for as long as I can remember.
Okay, so you've been studying it since you were a child. What
hmm
area would you say is your expertise?
Uh, First and foremost, I love memoirs. Like I love reading like the point of view from the soldiers,
Mm-hmm.
but I do like looking at unit histories and like campaigns, of course. But I would say probably like the European theater, like North Africa, Italy, France, Germany, Belgium, the Pacific theater with the Marines and the Army. And I like the other stuff too, but that's probably where I would say I focused a lot on and did a lot of research.
So more of the perspectives of individual soldiers and Marines.
Yeah, more of the individual ones, and then also like the units. I kind of like reading the unit histories. If it can get down to a company, the company, or of course, the division histories.
Mm-hmm.
But
Okay. So let me ask you, leading into that, which World War II battle fascinates you the most when it comes to um, reading the memoirs and their perspectives?
so everybody's heard of D-Day, the Normandy invasion, but I feel like that's overlooked a lot is like after D-Day, like that 2 month slugfest in the hedgerows.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so there's a lot of like battles in there that people just don't even realize went on. Like during the drive to St. Lo, they know about the drive to St. Lo, but even before that, there were so many like it was real personal warfare, and I feel like that kind of gets glazed over in a way.
You want to
So
explain
that,
some of that?
so yeah, right after D-Day, there was a lot of towns that were fought over, and like like the hedgerows too. It was very personal warfare. Hand to hand combat. a lot of other times there'd be soldiers right on the other side, like right next to each other, not even know about it.
Mm-hmm.
And and then you also seen a lot of innovation from the Americans. Ways how to fight because they weren't actually really prepared to fight in the hedgerows. From the aerial photographs, it kind of looked like they thought it was just like hedges, maybe like 5 feet, but they were up to like 8 to 12 feet. So they kind of were blindsided in a way. That was kind of an intelligence failure. But I don't know.
I can attest to a lot of intelligence failures when it comes to the
Yeah.
military.
Oh yeah, there was plenty. There was plenty.
even
Um,
even current battles and current leadership is just horrible.
yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. But
um,
yeah, a lot of personal acts of courage too.
oh, absolutely. We'll be getting into some of the Medal of Honor recipients and Distinguished Service Stars recipients. If you could interview one World War II leader, who would it be?
I'd probably say Eisenhower. Um,
Really,
he was a
Eisenhower?
he was a so he was a great general. He was a very humble guy. He kind of was the mediator between the United States and Britain. Kind of kept everybody sort of together because there was a lot of friction between. But he actually cared about his troops, and that's always big for a leader. But also too, on top of that, he became the president in the 50s,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know if you remember the interview. He said, "Be aware of the military-industrial complex." With that statement right there, that kind of showed that he cared for the
Mm-hmm.
future of our country. And yeah, I just always admired him for that being a good leader and caring for the soldiers and being a decent president too.
Okay.
So
Personally, I would have chose Terrible Terry. He's by
yeah,
far 100% kind of like Eisenhower, where he's 100% for his people. Got in trouble a lot with his upper leadership and ended up becoming a pretty significant general in the army as well.
yep.
Um, let's see. What
Gavin too.
what's
James
that?
Gavin was in
Gavin, yep.
General
Yep.
Gavin, yeah,
He was also a pretty significant leader.
and he was always
It's
right
so
there.
hard to choose a leader that if you can only find one, right? If you can only meet with one, but yeah, I
And,
resonate more with Terrible Terry because I mean, being a soldier myself and also a leader, it resonates a little bit,
yeah,
Let's see. What country would you say was the most misunderstood in World War II?
I'd probably say Italy.
Really?
Italy. So they were Axis, and then they were Ally in a way because there was kind of like there was a civil war going on. A lot of people didn't like the fascist Mussolini, and
Mm-hmm.
they didn't want anything to do with it. And of course, the Germans, they fully never really trusted the Italians either. So they were kind of always in this weird situation, and they didn't have the best, military equipment, and you know, a lot of times the soldiers, the United States or the British would come in and they'd be celebrating like the liberation, and you
Yeah,
think for a fact,
you don't really
yeah,
see a lot. You don't really hear a lot about Italy when it comes to military, like a military structure. Um,
yeah,
a lot of the times when you hear historians talk about Italy and World War II, it's mostly about um, how Germany basically occupied and took over Italy, right? That
yeah,
what?
kind
Tell
of
me
like.
about Italy's fighting force. What was their fighting force like?
So they didn't have like the resources a lot of the bigger countries had, so they were always kind of behind in that. And I mean, their leadership under Mussolini was not the greatest leader, as we know, and
Very true.
um,
Yeah.
their territory too. They really didn't have a lot of natural resources like in the Rhineland in the United States, so they were behind in that.
Hmm.
And But yeah,
So
they
they didn't
kind of
have a
just got.
standing army?
They did have a standing army. I mean, there was like an Italian army, but it was just it wasn't up to par to Germans and the British and
Mm-hmm.
Americans. I mean, they had some early victories, like they fought in Egypt and North Africa, but uh, and then they eventually ended up catapulting in the invasion of Sicily.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So we're gonna jump into um, a little bit of historical background here. Uh, what do you think the biggest cause of World War II was? It was the
So,
in the history books we learned that it was the assassination of oh, who was it? Wasn't there a major assassination that happened?
well, that was World War One.
Oh, that's right. Ferdinand,
France,
right? Yeah.
yeah, for
So what caused
um,
World War II?
so a couple factors. With the Treaty of Versailles, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right, but after the war, they put a lot of sanctions on Germany, and that did not sit right with them. So they were kind of bitter. And leading up, they also, when they were building their military, they violated this treaty majorly. And most of the countries that were supposed to regulate it just never put them in check, never honored the treaty. They kind of just let them keep going and
Mm-hmm.
going. And then of course, the Japanese as well, they wanted to expand their empire. And then as Hitler got more prominent in Germany, he wanted to expand spread Germany throughout Europe. So just building up and building up and building up. Eventually, it just was a time bomb.
Okay. Okay. Um, do you think World War II could have been prevented?
Uh, that's a tough question. I'd say it could have. If they kind of like monitor a little bit more, like once they were getting to that certain power point, kind of just say, okay, this wasn't what was agreed on, and just stop it right there. But I mean, it's interesting to think about how history would have been without that. That is very interesting to think about.
So you were talking about how they were expanding and getting Hitler was getting his views across a large amount of people. At what point do you think that war became inevitable?
So a lot of people think that the war started in 1939, which is the acceptable answer. But really and truly, it's kind of been building since the 1931. So there was the Japanese who invaded Manchuria,
Mm-hmm.
and then of course 1933 with the Nazi Party, and then 1938 they annexed Czechoslovakia, and then of course Poland, they invaded Poland in 1939. So once they invaded Poland, and then eventually invaded France, that was it. It took off,
There
and
was
then of course,
that was the point of no return
yeah, when
was
they went,
1939 and
that's probably say yeah, 1939 was where it fully just
okay.
that was.
And that was the German side, right? When do you say that it became inevitable to be like a world war, right? Where pretty much everybody was involved.
So after they went with France, the British obviously were pulled into it, and at the time the Soviets were actually part of the Axis powers. They were in and then eventually, with the Japanese attacking Pearl Harbor, the U.S. got
Mm-hmm.
pulled into it, and then and, there was already a lot of countries in before the U.S. though,
I mean, we joined
but also
significantly late, right? December 7th, 19 or December 7th was when Pearl Harbor was attacked in 1942, correct?
1941.
1941. Okay. So
December.
1941
Yeah.
December 7th, and then um we declared war not too long after that, right? it was the day after, no?
Either the day or the day after that. I'm pretty sure it was the day after the
Yeah, it
the
was like
8th.
December 8th is when I think it was, right? Yeah. So we
Yeah,
joined
and then
2 or 3
eventually,
years after the war officially started, right? Um,
mhm.
let's see.
So
Which
actually, after FDR declared war, uh, the Germans actually declared war on the U.S. And then, yeah, it was
because we only technically declared war on Japan, right?
yeah, we just did it on Japan, and then eventually, the Germans declared war on us because they were allies.
Yeah, and then we said, "All right, you want some too? Let's get it."
Yep. Yep.
um, so what country played uh what country played the biggest role in Europe getting involved?
Uh, Definitely Germany.
Germany?
Um, so Hitler with his the Third Reich, final solution, and
Mm-hmm.
wanting to have the Aryan race and ethnic Germans throughout Europe. And then once they started invading these countries and steamrolling over them, that thought got more, and everybody, a lot of Germans got swept up in it, because they were down for a long time after the World War I. So they were kind of swept up in euphoria in a way and just blindly followed. Same thing with Japan too, as well.
Well, Japan started invading China first, right?
Yeah,
And that's what led their, I guess, path into World War II, right?
yeah, because they wanted to expand their empire too, so
Mm-hmm.
they had a lot of early victories too, and
They
with
hit
the Germans,
fast and hard.
yeah, with the Germans and the Japanese as well, they kind of got like people got the misconception they couldn't be beat because they
Mm-hmm.
were just steamrolling over people, and then of course later on we found that wasn't true.
Uh, some of our scientists developed a certain
Yeah.
bomb that showed Japan that they're not who they think they are. Anyway, I digress from that. What's one common misconception that people mistake World War, like the beginning of World War II with, how it started?
Uh, I mean, I guess maybe back to what I was saying with the Poland thing. Like, kind of people think that's where, but it kind of built up from 1931.
Mm-hmm.
From Manchuria, and then Nazi Party rise, and then the invasion of China. So a lot of people think like, oh, it's just all powder keg in 19. What it did powder keg in 1939, but there was a build up. It didn't just start there.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably that's probably the biggest one.
And so, what was Germany's? You were talking about the Third Reich and whatnot. What was their overall strategy at the beginning of the war? Was it just to hit fast, hit hard, and take as much as they can, or what was it?
So yeah, they had a style called a blitzkrieg where they got a lot of like planes, tanks, infantry, and just went fast and hard. And they they kind of caught a lot of people off guard. So as they went through Poland, they occupied Holland, Czechoslovakia. Czechoslovakia was kind of more of like they walked in and didn't even fire a shot because it was technically part of the Sutherland, which was part of Germany before. So they got taken over, and then of
How much
course,
of that actually happened where they just entered the country and took over without much of a fight at all?
really, really just Czechoslovakia. I mean, Holland and Belgium and France, they all put up fights, but they in Poland, but they ended up just getting
Obliterated.
out. Yeah, I mean, they fought. Don't get me wrong, they fought valiantly, and but it was just people did not expect them to take France that fast. And once they took France that fast, that's when people were like, "Whoa!" Especially the British. And of course, that goes on into the Battle of Britain.
Yeah, the Blitzkrieg, essentially striking fast and striking hard, and just pushing as far forward as possible. It just overwhelmed them. Essentially, is what you're saying.
Yep, and then taking that territory and then occupying it.
Okay. And what was the Allies' strategy to defeat Germany and Japan?
So the Allies. It's ironic that because the U.S. got attacked by Japan, but they actually agreed with on a Germany first policy. So even though actually the first ground offensive was in Japan with
Mm-hmm.
Guadalcanal, um, but they wanted to focus on Germany first. So at first, the Pacific theater kind of got a little bit, put on to the side. A lot of the more supplies, because
Why
earlier in the
is that?
war, they looked at them as the bigger threat. They had the bigger military, and they just a lot of times it had a lot to do with Britain as well, because Britain was like really threatened,
Mm-hmm.
and they were our allies. So, um, but the United States actually wanted to invade Europe right away, like invade France, but Churchill and the British wanted to go under what they call the soft underbelly, which was
Mm-hmm.
like Sicily, Italy, North Africa,
Right.
and for political purposes, finally the United States agreed to do that, and then that's how that campaign started,
Okay.
and then the island hopping campaign in the Pacific.
Mm-hmm. Well, we were kind of on two fronts at the same time, right? So
Yeah.
explain that.
So yeah, so starting obviously with Japan, there was a lot of scary times early in the war for the U.S. We were very underprepared, so they had come up with I mean, before the war started, they kind of seen it coming in a way, so they did start to pre-mobilize and do the draft, but and we didn't have a lot of equipment. I think actually the United States before World War II was like maybe this could be wrong, but I know it was in the 20s, maybe 26th overall in the world in armies.
I think we were ranked 19th.
19th,
I think it
yeah,
was
it was
19th for overall like military strength.
yeah, it was
In
something
numbers.
like,
Yeah.
but yeah, so we had a lot of early defeats, and it was very unknown. Like it was very morale was very low.
You talked about the Guadalcanal.
Yeah,
One of
so
my favorite Marines was part of Guadalcanal. John
yeah,
Basilone.
oh yeah, he was a badass.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a
You want to
a
talk
lot
about
of
him for a
badass.
bit?
Yeah, Gunny Basilone.
Yes,
I mean,
sir.
the first Marines in general, just that was a big morale boost for the United States. Because Guadalcanal, at first it looked like we were about to lose that island too. And
Yeah.
the United States Navy actually they pulled out, and the Marines woke up to see that they were gone.
Hmm.
And they held on, and then of course with the airstrip, and that was a 6 month long campaign. So
Yeah, if I remember correctly, um after we successfully took the Guadalcanal, um Japan was relentless and they wanted that back really bad because of the
yes,
airstrip, right? And
yes, yes,
they constantly, until we pushed them all the way back, they were constantly attacking Guadalcanal, no?
yeah, that was their main focus. At first, it was kind of like New Ghana to
Mm-hmm.
get to Australia, and then eventually they were pulling resources from there to go to Guadalcanal, and
Yeah.
uh, they thought too we weren't the greatest fighters, and then we showed them, that Americans can actually fight, and
Well,
yeah,
when you got a Marine like John Basilone that inspires his gun crews.
Yeah,
You're 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 gonna instill fear in any fighting force that you're up against. But if I remember correctly, with John Basilone specifically, he went on. They pulled him from the front lines after he got awarded his Medal of Honor, right?
yeah. They wanted him to go on a war bond campaign in the United States, and he did not. He wanted to be with his people, his guys. So he eventually ended up going back, and then he ended up getting killed on Iwo Jima on the first day.
Before he
So
went back, though, they made him a drill instructor for quite a long time
yeah, he
during the war.
trained. Yeah, after the war bond drive, he did train
That's
a
where
lot
he
of
met his
soldiers.
wife, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But after training for a while, he just, he wanted to go back, and he ended up going back with them, and he ended up getting killed on the beach. So that's very admirable. He
Yeah.
could have he wanted to he could have been stayed in the States the rest of the time if he really wanted to, but
Oh, absolutely. And no one would have faulted him for doing that either.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, if I remember correctly, he ended up dying almost immediately after he left the boat, right? It was pretty soon after. Like they didn't
Oh
get
yeah,
too
it was
far up the beach.
probably like 10 between 10 to 20 minutes. Yeah.
Iwo Jima was a bloody battle,
Oh
very
yeah.
bloody battle, and probably, in my opinion, one of the most, I don't want to say
It was
failures, but it was a strategic failure on our part, the way we performed it, I think.
and also too the Americans actually had more casualties than the Japanese in that battle. That
Oh,
was the
100%. Yeah.
That's one of the only times that happened.
Yeah, it was definitely a strategic failure on our part. The leadership, I don't know if they got inspired by the Russians or what, but they just kept on throwing wave after wave, and watching each wave perish was, I can only imagine, you know, the horrors that those who survived Iwo Jima endured after that. It's
Oh
sad
yeah,
to
there
think
was
about. Um, which out of the out of the Pacific theater and the European theater, which campaign was planned the best?
like executed the best.
Yes, sure. Executed the best.
Um, that's a good question. Um, I would say probably one of the most successful ones in the European theater was the drive through right after we broke out from Normandy. Operation Cobra, and then driving through France so fast with Patton.
Hmm.
That probably was one of the more better executed campaigns. For the
Well, didn't
Pacific,
I thought, back to one of my favorite generals, Terrible Terry, didn't he beat Patton to Germany?
um, yeah, Patton actually got stymied in the Lorraine campaign, which was like
Yeah.
in northern. So that was actually his worst campaign during the whole war. They got tore up pretty good, but also too is they stretched their supply line so far.
Hmm.
So he kind of got had no he wanted to go, but he had no choice but to stop, and then as they stopped, their defenses got built up a little bit more, and
They got
then
comfortable. Yeah.
they got stuck in Lorraine, and then also on the other side, they got stuck in the Hergen Forest. It's another one that
Hmm.
people very, very, very bloody battle that the United States likes to forget about a lot, conveniently.
Yeah, we don't really like to remember our failures, unfortunately, but our failures make us stronger. So I think learning
Yeah,
about them and studying them so that we don't make the same mistakes again is which, unfortunately, with the wars that follow, World War
Yeah,
II. We definitely didn't learn from our mistakes. Um,
yeah, a lot of mistakes.
which campaign on it could be either the Axis or the Allies side was the biggest mistake? Like the worst
So,
planned out.
so on the European side, I'd probably say the Hurricane because the United States was excess for some reason when taking that forest, and they really didn't have to. Like they looked later on, and it was been debated that they probably could have skirted around it and held it in place. Also, too, they did that with the Battle of the Brittany campaign,
Mm-hmm.
which is a lot of people don't even know about that. They instead of holding the forts, which they eventually did this, but instead of holding the forts in place, they decided to try to battle and take Brittany and Brest, and there was just a lot of unnecessary casualties where they could have just kept them contained. And then on the Pacific side, the Battle of Peleliu with the First Marine Division.
Mm-hmm.
After the war, they they it was just so many casualties. But after the war, they thought that that probably could have been bypassed too because MacArthur had gotten a closer airfield. So that one, a lot of Marines are bitter about that too. That served there because they felt like they didn't have to be there now.
Which now we all talk about D-Day, right? But which battle was the battle that changed the course of the war the most?
So yeah, this is a tough question too because some people look at it as the Battle of Midway, the Battle of Stalingrad, Guadalcanal, D-Day. Um, I kind of look at it as it all kind of a bigger picture combined. Multiple things happening.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if I had to pick one early in the war, I'd probably say Guadalcanal for like the morale purposes, and um, later on, I'd say D-Day. That was the starting point of Nazi Germany's downfall.
Okay.
But I would say probably more of an overall cumulative effect.
Okay. Was was there a battle that didn't get enough attention that comes to your head?
Oh yeah, there's a lot. The first thing that comes to mind for me is the Italian campaign because it really got overshadowed. Like after like the invasion of Italy initially, after we invaded France, they fought all the way to 1945. Like, and they were in the mountains of Italy, northern Italy, just slogging it out. And you don't really hear about that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even the earlier Italy battles, like with Salerno, Anzio, those are more of the main known ones. That's even kind of overlooked. When we captured Rome, it was June 4th when we captured Rome. So June 6th is when D-Day happened. So like
Yeah.
that kind of got overshadowed too. So yeah, the
Okay.
Italian theater is very, very much overlooked, and they deserve their credit as well.
We're gonna jump into the leadership side of World War II, where we're gonna talk about some of the leaders and talk about their history and whatnot. Let's talk about Adolf Hitler to start off with.
Yeah.
What what
Um,
what can you tell me about Adolf? Good old Adolf.
well, he actually wasn't a great leader. He was not. I mean, morale purposes, obviously, he was a very shitty person. But
I think he was a
uh,
con artist.
yeah, he was very good at public speaking and
Yeah.
was able to get the German people behind him and the cause. But as a military strategist, he was not the smartest, and he made a lot of mistakes. The biggest mistake, probably Operation Barboza, which was the invasion of the Soviet Union, because it stretched them on two fronts.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of thought he can take them too, which they did get pretty far. They they did do good early in the campaign, but eventually it backfired. But yeah, there was a lot of times he did not listen to his generals, and I'm not saying the other generals didn't make their mistakes, 'cause they definitely did.
Do you
But
think that if he would have listened more closely to his generals, that the war would have ended differently?
um, I feel like the biggest scenario with that, if the Soviet Union wasn't invaded, it probably would have definitely ended differently. Um, After that, though, if he did listen, I'd probably say it would be the same result, but it would probably prolong the war because he did some like after Normandy, there was Operation Lutich.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but they that was the only counterattack in the Normandy campaign in August, and he was advised against that, but he went against that and did it anyway, and that kind of shortened the war.
Of course he did.
It probably, yeah, it probably would have prolonged it a lot more if he would have listened to his generals there.
Mm-hmm. Well, would prolonging it have made a difference?
Oh no, I feel like the Allies would have still prevailed, but it probably would have definitely
Lasted
prolonged it.
longer. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about his like mental health? He was a drug addict, wasn't he?
Yeah, he took a lot of I think it was opium, meth, morphine, and yeah, he was drug addict, and he was delusional, and he was very sick towards the end of the war, and crazy. Definitely probably say
The big
crazy.
question: do you think he actually killed himself in that bunker?
I, Something tells me I don't think he did because I mean he very well. Just my personal opinion, because a lot of Nazis did pop up in the South America, which is a whole another interesting topic, but never found his body. The Russians claim that they have it, but never showed it. Um, so I don't know. I feel like he didn't, but I don't think even if he did, he probably didn't live too much longer after that.
Yeah. Truthfully, I think he was too full of himself. I think he loved himself way too much.
Yeah.
I don't think he would have committed suicide, but no, it was either one of his officers gave him to the Russians or he escaped.
Yeah, and there's a theory after that of them. Um, there,
There's a whole city in South America, right? That is like their primary language is German. No,
um, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if their primary language is German, but there was a lot of Germans there. Oh, yeah, suspiciously a lot of Germans.
I think talking about Hitler first. The next person we should talk about is Winston Churchill. What do you think about? Tell me a little bit about Winston Churchill.
So he was Britain's rock during the war. He was a very inspirational, reassuring person during a very, very dark time for Britain. Um, he was a pretty good. He was very hands on in the war. He wanted to updates, and like he wanted to insert himself a lot in the war.
Hmm.
And most of his time, his judgment was good, I would say. But I feel like he was a very good leader. He was actually probably the perfect leader for that time period for them.
Absolutely. Talk about rocks. FDR, Franklin D. Roosevelt, quite literally a
FDR,
rock.
yeah, he even before World War II, he held the nation together. With getting the country out of the depression, um,
Now,
getting the
do you think that he got us out of the depression, or do you think it was the war that got us out of the depression?
well, I think he was a big part early. The war definitely helped, but so he had a lot of programs. Like he created the CCC, the Civilian Conservation Corps.
Hmm.
Created a lot of jobs, and also too with he had these fireside chats that he would talk to the nation. It's like he was right there in their living room with them. Um, and eventually leading up to a war, before the United States got in, there was a big debate of whether to stay out of the war or stay in the go in the war, and he managed that, I think, very well. And then, of course, during the war, he was a very hands-on leader like Churchill, and I feel like he was good for the country as well. And, he did 3 terms. A lot of the guys that fought were young, and that's all. That's the only president that they knew was FDR.
Mm-hmm.
So he
A
had a
lot of
big.
people say that he was our closest president to a dictator just because he uh, served 3 terms and not the standard 2 terms.
Yeah, I mean, as far as democracy wise, it's very uncommon. Um, but I would say he was still definitely a good president.
I agree with you. I think for the time he was definitely what we needed as a leader for sure. Um, what about Joseph Stalin? What can you tell me about him?
Yeah, he was a brutal, brutal man. He, I mean, he built the Soviet up into a powerhouse, but he did it at a lot of expenses to his own people's lives. So, you know, um, he made famines. He killed numerous his own people. He was very egotistical and just, yeah, a very terrible person.
Well, not just that, but didn't he the Russian army in and of itself, they would charge they would make assaults with soldiers with no weapons, right? And they would just pick up the weapons of the dead soldiers in the front. Uh,
Yeah,
that's just
the
so
Russians,
brutal.
yeah, yeah, they would just send wave after wave. They did not really care about, life. It was more, get the mission done. And even today, kind of you see today with it, they still have that mindset in a way
Hmm.
with Ukraine.
Oh yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
they had actually had people called commissioners that would sit behind the lines, and anybody who turned back to retreat, they would shoot them. Like that was their job to shoot retreaters. And a lot of times, like too, like a officer would just come up, and if he wanted to, he can just shoot him. Just
Yeah.
you're being insubordinate, shoot him. So they are very, very brutal people, and I mean, not like even like today, like a lot of the civilians, I think they want to move on and have a change from that. But Putin's more from the old Soviet Union,
Hmm.
so he kind of still has that in him. So yeah, very brutal people.
What about Isoroku Yamamoto?
So he actually did not want to go to war with the United States. He
Really?
advised against he advised against the Pearl Harbor attack, but it's ironic because he actually ended up facilitating it and making it happen. Like,
Do you think he
but
secretly wanted to, but he was giving himself an out?
no, I genuinely believe he saw what would happen. So because he did try to adamantly to not have that happen. Um, and he was actually a pretty good military strategist as well. Um, and his death was a pretty interesting one too. In 1943, there was I don't know if you know what the Ultra system was.
Tell me
Like we
about it.
decoded, so we decoded like their transmissions, and it was one of the most secret, kept secret for the longest time. Like only a select few knew about it. And actually, they wanted to keep it secret so bad. Some of the things that they got there, they knew about was going to happen, but they didn't want to tip their hand too many times. They make them suspicious. But they got an intercept that he was going to be flying over in this plane over the ocean, and they ended up shooting it down and killing him.
Oh wow, that's
Yeah,
pretty
yeah,
interesting.
very
Okay.
interesting side.
Um, was Yamamoto the one that said that they woke the beast whenever they attacked Pearl Harbor.
Sleeping giant.
The sleeping giant. That's right.
We
Is he the
sleeping
one that
giant.
said that?
Yes.
Okay. I I thought that was always such a cold line.
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
He knew it was up. At the beginning.
what about Erwin Rommel? Tell me about Erwin Rommel.
So he was one of Hitler's favorite generals. Now he wasn't a Nazi, so a lot of people try to champion that about him, but at the same time, he did follow them and was very loyal to them. So I think some people try to glorify Rommel, but he was he wasn't a greatest strategist when it came to like grand scheme of things.
Mm-hmm.
But like in close personal, he was up front. He did manage battles good in a lot of ways. But as far as an overall bigger strategic picture, he wasn't the greatest, and he overextended his supply lines. Now for the North, he was tasked with building up the Atlantic Wall before Normandy, and he actually wanted to defeat them on the beaches, which was the most sound strategy. But he was overruled by I think it was a Runsfield or Runstedt.
So what
Uh,
what made him Hitler's favorite general?
I think just he was very popular with the people, and some of his early victories in North Africa, they really kind of stouted that. Um, but with the Atlantic Wall, he was spot on with what they needed to do, and they didn't listen to him. And once they got past the beaches, that was it. And then
Okay.
I don't know if you know about what happened to him later in the war.
Tell me
Um,
about it.
so Hitler was convinced, he became very paranoid, and he was convinced that he had to do with that assassination attempt on him. So he let him come home and have the honor of committing suicide, and so he can spare his family and go out honorably instead of being shamed.
So
So he
Hit
ended up
so Hitler basically made him kill himself.
in a way, yeah, he gave him a choice of making him kill himself or his family, and to save his family, he said he would go along with that.
I suppose that's pretty honorable in a way.
Yeah.
A a good transition from honor. Dwight D. Eisenhower, General Eisenhower. Tell me about him.
Oh yeah. Like I was saying before, he was a very humble guy who cared about his troops, a very calming presence. Um, he was a mediator between the British and the American brass. He was a great president. I think he cared about the citizens and people. Um, Also, too, with the whole D-Day decision, he had some of the biggest decisions on his plate during the war, and I think he handled them honorably. Like, actually, he had a whole entire speech drafted to take full responsibility if the D-Day invasion failed.
Really? Oh
So I
wow.
thought, that was actually, I feel like that was very honorable of him. And he was very, very, um, very affected before Normandy about sending these people in there. He thought it was going to be a slaughter, which it very well could have been.
What was
So,
his most? What would you say? D-Day is his most notariable campaign.
yeah, I'd probably say that's probably the most. Yeah, but he was there from the beginning. He was in North Africa. He was in Sicily and Italy, and
What
then
roles
eventually.
did he play in those campaigns?
So he was underneath Vernon Hall before he got sacked. He was actually underneath Patton too. He actually started off with Patton.
Okay.
No, 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 no. Sorry. he started off with MacArthur, and he ended up leaving MacArthur's staff, and then he worked with Patton and Ferdinand, and then eventually he got the overall command
Okay.
after the whole slapping.
Talk about Patton and MacArthur. Let's jump into those two. Um,
Oh yeah.
who do you want to talk about
Um,
first?
uh, well, they're both egomaniacs.
Oh, absolutely.
Um, so Patton's soldiers either loved him or hated him. He was a
No in
very,
between. No in between.
yeah, no in between. Very, very strong personality. Um, he had a lot of great moments. With even from World War I, he was a good soldier. And North Africa, Sicily. He had moments there, and of course the Northern campaign, uh, the Northern France campaign, the drive through France. He
Mm-hmm.
executed that good, but he was also critiqued for kind of not heeding the loss of life. He not on the scale of the scale of the Soviets were, but he threw a lot of his men in the battle, like in a lot of casualties. He got a lot of flack for that. Um, he also there was a lot of speculation at the end of the war because he wanted to go and fight the Soviets like right after we defeated Germany. There's a lot of speculation that like, maybe that accident he might have been killed instead of assassinated instead of that killed accidentally.
Mm.
I can't say for sure, but he did not listen a lot either. He always got in trouble, with the whole slapping incident in Sicily, and he always wanted to go, go, go,
Mm-hmm.
and did not want to listen to his superiors.
Well, Patton often got into arguments with my favorite general, and yeah,
Yeah,
no one, everyone respected him, but no one really liked him, is what I would say.
yeah, I'd say that's a good analysis.
Yeah.
And now MacArthur, on the other hand, same thing, a very egotistical
Mm-hmm.
person. He was actually during the middle of the war trying to form a campaign to run for president, like during actual hostility. Um, a lot of his men, they called him Dugout Doug because he would kind of they think that he should have been more involved up front.
Mm-hmm.
Now during World War I, he did serve honorably, and a lot of people like to throw this in his face too that he abandoned. Well, he did mismanage the early Filipino campaign. He definitely was a big factor why that ended the way it did. But to his credit, though, the reason why he left the island, he wanted to stay. He was actually ordered by Roosevelt to leave.
Mm-hmm.
So if the president orders you,
Yeah.
so you can't fault him for that. But he was looked on as a um, more self-centered, But he did execute a very good island hopping campaign.
Mm-hmm.
He did he did execute it very good from a strategic review.
And do you know who Georgy Zhukov is?
The Russian general,
Yeah.
yeah. So kind of on the same thing with Stalin. He was very brutal, did not really care about casualties, but he was actually, as far as military strategy goes, he was actually a very, very good strategist, a very good general in that respect. But yeah, just did not care about casualties. Actually, he was such a good general that later in the war, Stalin felt threatened by him and actually demoted him so he wouldn't get more praise.
That seems like a trend with
Yeah,
like with these leaders that you know are so full of themselves
yeah,
that they feel threatened by everything, and
yeah.
uh, it's just so sad to really read about, honestly. Let's see. Out of the leaders that we discussed, who was the best military commander on paper?
On paper. Um, like what level would you say? Like, are we talking like corps level, army level, division? Like, what
Um,
what level would you say?
we'll go division.
Division. So some of the more my favorite division generals. Um, well, I like Terry Allen too. He was definitely a good one. Uh, Prescott, he was the Third Infantry Division one. Leland Hobbs, he was the 30th Infantry Division. Um, Bruce, he was the 77th Infantry Division, arguably the best Army division in the Pacific. Um, I like Norman Coda too.
What
And he
about
got some
do you know anybody from the 442nd?
442nd. The Japanese,
Yeah.
the Japanese battalion.
Yeah.
I know some individual soldiers.
Well, they
Um,
had quite a few
oh,
distinguished.
they have one of the I think the biggest for unit size. They have one of the biggest medal counts.
Mm-hmm.
Now getting up in the corps level, I'd say you got Lightning Joe Collins, which he was the 25th Infantry Division commander in the Pacific, and then got transferred to the European theater. I feel like he was good. Bradley, he was a soldier. Um, he was a good strategist. He was a little bit too cautious, they say, but there were some times in the war where if he would have went, it probably would have shortened the war. That was his only blemish.
Mm.
But he definitely cared about the troops and was a decent commander. Manton Eddy was a good commander. Uh, Guru was a good commander. Uh, one person we didn't talk about too was Bernard Montgomery. He was
Okay.
the British. Him and a lot of the American generals did not get along. The British people loved him. His soldiers loved him. But he was very, very cautious when it came to planning. And Patton, he wanted to go. Montgomery, he wanted to like almost like a chessboard, like plan out things and make
Mm-hmm.
it, and save as many lives as he could, which is, I feel like, is a good thing to be as a commander, but sometimes you do have to make the decision to go.
Yeah. In wartime, it's very hard to make the decision to send your troops somewhere where you know a lot of them aren't going to make it back.
Yes, very, very tough position. Yes.
Um, who do you on the Allies side, who do you think made like the biggest blunder?
Uh, hmm. So probably I would say the Battle of the Bulge, like the intelligence failure there, like because there was such a buildup that
On
it
the
was
America side?
yeah.
Okay.
So like a lot of the soldiers were saying, this is going on, like this is there's a lot of activity going on, something's going on. And they were so convinced that the Germans were pretty much defeated at that point. They didn't take it as seriously. And of course, when the Bulge hit off, it was prolonged the war by a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Also, too, back to that Bradley thing in the Northern Campaign, Northern France. I don't know if you know about the Felice Gap or Felice Pocket.
Mm-hmm.
They trapped a lot of German troops and captured them. They say if Bradley would have been a little bit more aggressive and closed the pocket quicker, we could have shortened the war by capturing even more.
Okay.
So that I'd probably say those are the two biggest failures when it came to Allies side.
Let's see. What which leader do you think gets too much credit?
Hmm, that's a good one. Uh, In a way, I kind of want to say Patton in a way because I mean he was definitely a commanding presence and he was a pretty good leader, but he still wasn't the greatest strategist, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
And he was egotistical. I mean, honestly, probably MacArthur too, in a way. They're kind of on the same. I would probably say MacArthur more than Patton personally.
Okay.
I'd probably say MacArthur more than Patton.
Because of the
Um,
dugout Doug thing.
well, that, but he was also, like very self-centered, like the whole trying to make a presidential
Mm-hmm.
campaign
I
during the
didn't know about that. That's crazy. That's crazy to me
that
that he would do
that,
that.
that kind of rubs me the wrong way. I
Yeah.
don't know. I'd probably say him.
Which leader do you think deserves more recognition? There's a lot of them, I know.
Yeah, yes, yes. I'd probably say uh Robert Eichelberger.
I haven't
So
heard of
like
him.
yeah, so he um early on during the Pacific campaign, Army was struggling a lot and he came in and just totally flip flopped. He was a great military strategist. He was up front, and in fact, actually, there was plenty of stories that he was told to like General, get down, like they're shooting at you. Like he was up there with the troops.
Mm-hmm.
He really turned around. I feel like the Pacific Theater a lot. Um, Probably another one I'd say.
Isn't it crazy that a lot of the officers and generals that you see today, when it comes to battle, they're not nowhere to be seen. But like back in World War II, they were always they were on the front lines fighting with the troops.
Yes, most of them. There's a few.
Most,
There's
yeah,
a few. There's a
most.
few bad eggs there, but yeah, they were definitely more active. I feel like yeah. I mean, a lot of those generals too came from World War One.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah. If you could put one general in charge of every allied army, who would it be?
I'd say Eisenhower.
Eisenhower?
Yeah, because just with his ability to make appease everybody and make things run more smoothly.
Okay. All right. We're gonna go into some equipment um, talking points here. What weapon was the most overrated weapon?
Uh, I'd probably say the Thompson submachine gun. People love the Thompson, because it's a very, classic, famous weapon, but it was actually very heavy to carry and
Wasn't very accurate.
wasn't very accurate. I mean, if it was close range,
Yeah.
like close quarter fighting, it was a monster. It definitely did do its work, but as far as accuracy, I'd say it's pretty overrated. But it was still favored by a lot of troops, though.
I mean, if I'm
So
being honest with you, I'd agree that the Thompson probably is
yeah,
the most overrated weapon system. However, I wouldn't agree that up close. Now, if you're talking like in a bunker, sure, but I mean, man, I don't know if you've ever fired a Thompson, but those things are so inaccurate. You can shoot an entire magazine out of it,
yeah,
and you'll probably hit the target like 3 times.
oh yeah.
It's so
Another one
inaccurate.
too. Another one too. Also, is that it gets a lot of love is the Luger pistol.
Mm-hmm.
That was like a prize souvenir, and
Yeah.
everybody wanted a Luger even today. But it actually really wasn't the greatest working, and it was very intricate.
It
So
was
it
very
wasn't.
intricate, but it was super accurate, and
Yeah,
it was pretty light, no?
yeah, it was light. it just it just became this big thing. It has this like larger than life prism.
Now that leads to my next question. What's the most underrated weapon?
Huh. Underrated weapon.
I'd say the carbine.
The M1 carbine
Mm-hmm.
or the uh
No one really liked it because of how
the stopping power.
well the
Didn't have,
stopping power, and you like the range on it just wasn't as good as the Garand.
yeah. I'd say maybe the BAR, Browning automatic rifle.
Really, you think
It
that's
was
underrated?
Yeah, because it was very heavy, but at the same time, it was a very important part to the American Rifle
Mm-hmm.
companies, and it gave the firepower it needed. Like the MG42 was very obviously everybody knows the MG42,
Mm-hmm.
but the Browning I feel like was able to keep more firepower with the Americans because they had the 30 caliber, which it was a lot more slower than the MG42. But I feel like
Yeah,
the Browning automatic rifle squad was overlooked in a way.
I guess. Yeah, yeah. You're right. It was overlooked, but I don't know if that's underrated. So when I say underrated, I mean like no one, everyone feels that that weapon is not as good as it is. And I think
Yeah.
everybody knows that the Browning
Oh
is
yeah.
as good as it is.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I guess when you say it in that sense, hmm, I'm gonna go with the M4 Sherman
Really? Okay.
because it gets a lot of flack in a way, but at the same time, for a while, it kept us in the war before the Pershing came,
Mm-hmm.
and you know it. It's always looked at as being the more weaker tank, that got
Mm-hmm.
slaughtered by German tanks, which it did, but it was actually more maneuverable and easier to fix, more interchangeable parts and different variants. And then, they put like the hedgehogs on them during the Normandy campaign to like get through the hedgerows.
Mm-hmm.
So like it was very versatile and um, it definitely helped the infantry
Okay.
and it you know
Um, which we talked a lot about America's equipment. Which country's equipment impressed you the most?
probably Germany's, um, just for the fact that they were the first to have the assault rifle. The
Mm-hmm.
STG-44 is a blueprint to pretty much every assault rifle today. They were the first to have a rocket, like
Mm-hmm.
an actual ballistic rocket with the V1 and V2. First jet engine airplane, like the age of jets were formed with the Germans. Um, they had a lot of great scientists, and so
We
they,
stole a lot of them.
well, yeah, we did Operation Paperclip. The only place that they lacked really was, I mean, a lot of this stuff came towards the end of the war, did
Mm-hmm.
not make a difference. But as far as like innovating for future generations, they definitely were impressive. And their uniforms too, like their camouflage patterns were
Mm-hmm.
very, you know, um, the only thing I would say that Americans had better was the M1 Garand versus the Car 98K.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there was just a bolt action single shot. And then, of course, the Germans had the machine pistol, the burp gun, which a lot of people liked. Um, the Gewehr 43, kind of another overlooked rifle. Not a lot. You didn't see it very a lot, but also too, they had the first night vision scope as well.
Really?
Yeah, so a lot of technological innovations there for them.
So that being said, in a war like World War II, is it is it better to have the best technology or the ability to produce the most equipment?
Uh, I feel like probably the best technology
Well,
because
you just admitted that Germany had the best technology, but yet
yeah,
here we are today.
well,
We're not speaking German.
yeah, well, so it came later in the war. I feel like if the
Okay, okay.
Germans would have had that earlier in the war,
Would have made a big
I'm
difference.
saying, I'm not saying they would have maybe won, but it definitely would have made a giant difference.
Okay, okay.
And but definitely with the Americans' production, it definitely helped. And a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people think too that the German army was like this very well mechanized army, but most of the army relied on horses still.
Oh
So
wow.
a lot of people don't really realize that they relied a lot more on horses than people thought.
Okay. Now we're getting into the juicy parts, the juicy questions. All right. What if Germany had never invaded the Soviet Union?
I think there's a good chance we might be speaking German. Um, I'm not saying that would be the outcome, but it would have been a very, very tall task for the Allies to fight both the Soviets and the Germans together.
At the very
Um,
least, most of Europe would be speaking German.
yeah, at the very least, yes. That was Hitler's biggest mistake, and yeah, it's scary to think about sometimes. I'm glad he made that idiot mistake.
What about that invasion just basically wrecked his entire plan?
Just he stretched his fronts out. He was fighting the British and the Americans, and then from the east he was getting fighting from the Soviets, like closing in on them. And then of course they had people fighting in Italy. They pulled out of North Africa eventually, but they were
Hmm.
fighting in Italy, and so he just overstretched his armies, and they couldn't handle both fronts. They were both powerhouses. And
And like you said, they were powered by mostly, horse and buggy carrying
yeah,
supplies and that distance. It's a long way.
yeah, yep. And they had a lot of production through like the Roar, which was like where they produced stuff. But eventually, after we bombed with the bombing campaigns, that
Hmm.
slowed down their production as well.
Would America have ever joined the war if Japan never attacked Pearl Harbor?
I feel like we would have eventually, because a lot of people wanted to, like from government side, I'd say. A lot of people didn't too, but I feel like, especially FDR, he did want to, he's seen like what was going on. So I think eventually we probably would have gotten the war.
A lot of people
Britain,
don't know this, but we had American soldiers in China fighting Japan well before 1939.
yeah, actually, Red Edson with the Marine Raiders, he actually was embedded with them and learned a lot of his jungle fighting tactics
It's not
through them.
even from that. Before that. It was oh, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but it was a Air Force pilot that was training the Chinese army. Back then, they were giving him $1,000 a month. The Chinese was giving him $1,000 a month. He ended up getting permission from the president himself, um, to go over to China. He retired his commission, and then he came back to America once the Japanese attacked China, and yeah, he just recruited a bunch of officers, pilots, they were called something tigers. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, the Flying Tigers. I know what you're
Yeah,
talking about.
yeah, and they had like a hundred pilots is what I think he gathered, and they
I
were
believe
getting
so.
paid like $1,000 a month by the Chinese, which is
It,
like $25,000 a month in today's currency, by the way, which is insane to think
yes,
about. But yeah,
that brings.
they were doing aerial like like they taught the Chinese guerrilla aerial combat.
Yeah. See, right there, like I just learned something new. That's why also I love about the war too is like every day I learned something new. Like
Hmm.
as much as I read up on and much as I studied on, there is just so much more to learn and discover.
Yeah,
Like that's what
that
also
happened in the early 30s. Early 30s that happened.
that's what's fun too. Just I read something or hear something, I'm like, wow, like that's cool,
Yeah.
and like, it's just always ever expanding.
So you think that we would have entered the war, would it have been towards the later years, and would the war have lasted a lot longer than what it did?
I think it definitely would have lasted a lot longer. Kind of hard to say what year. If I were to take a guess, um, maybe even as early as 1942.
Hmm.
Maybe even as early as that. But it's just so hard. It's so hard to get.
That's fair. Here's a hard one for you. What if D-Day had failed?
Oh, so definitely would have prolonged the war by maybe a year, 2, 3 years, maybe even. Um, there's also maybe that the United States citizens would maybe not be behind the war as much as they were. So there's always the possibility that there would have been some kind of treaty where Germany could have kept a lot of their things, or
Hmm.
kind of could went it that way, or could have went we did try again and come back, but it would have been a lot longer war.
Right.
It's hard to say, but I feel like those would probably be the two likely outcomes.
Um,
Scary thought, though. I mean, it damn near almost did fail in a lot of ways.
what if we never used the A bombs?
So this is probably one of the biggest debates still with World War II. Um, and I'm on the fence with it because a lot of people don't know actually before we dropped the bombs, uh, Japan was already considering surrender terms.
Really?
They Yeah, so they were in talks. They were in talks with the United States about keeping their emperor in place. The United States wanted total surrender.
Hmm.
They wouldn't have any power. And also, too, the Soviets actually declared war against Japan shortly before that. So between that and just getting firebombed, the Tokyo fire bombings and
Hmm.
getting bombed, they were already in talks. I'm not saying they would have surrendered, but I feel like they maybe could at least waited it out a little longer.
Hmm.
That being said, though, dropping the bombs, a lot of people, soldiers, are thankful because if we did end up invading Japan, there would have been catastrophic casualties, and I'm talking we probably would have went up to definitely a million.
Really?
Like, um, it would have been bad because you got the military obviously, but the citizens were so brainwashed into thinking the United
Hmm.
States soldiers kill them and rape them and do all this stuff. They would have fought too. They would have resisted too.
Hmm.
And so if that was the case, if we were to invade, it did save a lot of lives. Um, and but it definitely opened up a can of worms also too with the nuclear stuff. But so yeah, I'm always on the fence with that. I definitely feel like it was necessary if we were to invade, but we probably could have waited a little longer and see if they would have surrendered in other ways.
Okay. I think that pressure from Russia probably would have, like, if that's true. I haven't read
Yeah,
into it a lot, but that pressure from Russia probably would have got them to surrender.
yeah, because that would they're a way smaller country. So like
Mm-hmm.
just seeing the United States and Russia collapsing
The
on
two
them, they
biggest
were
powerhouses of the world at that time collapsing in on you. Yeah, that's
yeah.
game over. Um, what if Germany had defeated Britain in the Battle of Britain?
Uh, United States, I feel like would have definitely entered that point if Pearl Harbor wasn't attacked.
Okay.
Because we're kind of bound to them in a way. I feel like.
That happened in 42, right?
But late 41, yeah. Well, depends how you look at it. Could be early 41 to late 41. Even late 40.
Well,
But
because we entered the world December the war in December 8th of 41. So the very end of
yeah.
41. So what would it have been 42?
Well, the Battle of Britain ended in the end of 1940, early 1941.
Okay. Well, so
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 I
we
mean,
stayed out of it.
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like we might have waited a little longer. Also too, I feel like the English would have fought hard too.
Mhm.
You know, they would have definitely defended. Just
What
like if
what
someone
would the impact have
invaded our
been
country.
to Britain if they had lost the Battle of Britain? What would that impact have been?
There's a good chance Hitler might have did a a landing on their beaches.
Mm.
A lot of people don't know too is he listened to Hermann Goring. Like when they got to the end of the shores on France, Hermann Goring said, "We can defeat them with our air force. Our bombing.
Mhm.
We'll be able to do it." And he took his advice. And Hermann Goring was always very close to Hitler, even after that.
That's a
But
very
Hitler
rare thing,
also
Hitler listening
still,
to his generals.
yeah, and he was very. That was one of the more point. He didn't go to him as much as he probably would have if he didn't do
Mhm.
that. But prolonging that with the bombing campaign eventually led to them not invading.
So
But yeah,
that kind of falls pretty good into my next question. What if Hitler would have listened to his generals more often? Would that have changed anything?
I feel like it definitely would have prolonged the war because the Germans were master at the defensive withdrawal,
Mm-hmm.
fighting and withdrawing, like masters at it. And there's a lot of situations where they could have saved a lot more of their troops if they would have withdrawn, but Hitler overrode it and didn't attack.
Mm,
So if they were able to withdraw and save troops, it definitely would have drawn it out a lot more.
okay.
Like in Eastern Front and the Western Front both.
If America would have stayed out of the war, what would have happened? Would we have been invaded eventually? Would the Axis have won over Europe and Africa, or what? Tell me what would happen in your opinion.
In my opinion, I feel like they probably would have been content with Europe. Um, I mean, that's not to say that Hitler would have got cocky and thought about it and maybe tried, but I feel like they probably would have been content with Europe.
Okay.
Um, a lot of people don't know this too. Is there was some U-boats that actually shelled the eastern coast on the United States,
Mm-hmm.
and some Japanese submarines that shelled the western coast. And also too, the only cold weather battle in the Pacific was in the Aleutian Islands, like Kiska and Etu. The Japanese actually established bases there, and the Seventh Infantry Division fought there. Alaska wasn't part of the United States at the time, but that was still pretty damn close.
Yeah.
So that's what made us very uncomfortable. But A lot of people don't know about that battle too.
Okay. We're gonna play a little game. It's
All right.
it's called myth busting, and I'm gonna read you some statements. Um, you're gonna say whether or not it's true, false, partly true, and then you're gonna explain why. All right.
Okay.
So here's some of the statements. Germany almost built a nuclear bomb.
I'm gonna say partly true. They didn't almost build it, um, but they definitely were working towards it. They just didn't have the resources, uh, and they also were working on a lot of other things with their scientists at the time. But they definitely were looking into it, and like, I'm gonna be honest with you. Like this is also too like for a long time there, I thought they were a lot closer than they were, and I found out I was more wrong on that, which is
Mm-hmm.
also I think is important too for people who enjoy history. Um, to admit when you're wrong, and admit also like always be yearn to learn more. A lot of people kind of get this chip on their shoulder. Like I'm always like excited to learn more, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm open to other people's opinions and stuff. So I feel like that's important for historians.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, I got a little
Um,
off topic.
no, it's okay. I warned everybody that there's gonna be some rabbit holes. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
next one is the Tiger tank was unbeatable.
Um, I'm gonna definitely fall. I'm gonna say false because we definitely could beat it. Later on with the war with the Pershing, we definitely had a lot of upgrades and can compete with it more. That being said, the Shermans and a lot of other tanks had to get very close or hit them speedily from the side or behind to take them out because they were superior in firepower. Like when it came to like that,
The Tiger
but
tank was definitely ahead of its time.
oh yeah, it was a beast when it came to firepower.
Yeah.
The only downfall of that too is it broke down a lot, and
Mm-hmm.
they didn't have a lot of interchangeable parts. And of course, when Germany was running out of gas, they didn't have gasoline to put in. But but as far as like unbeatable, I'd say very, very, very hard to beat, but not unbeatable.
Okay. Now, a lot of people are gonna say true to this next question, especially the Americans watching. The
Yeah.
French didn't fight.
Uh, false. When they got invaded, they fought and they got pushed back a lot quicker than the whole world expected. But even after they catapulted, they had a resistance force
Mm-hmm.
um that really stepped up and did a lot of work behind the shadows. That being said, though, you also had the Vichy French, which were loyal to the Germans, and there was some French during the occupation that were loyal to the Germans out of convenience,
Mm-hmm.
and then but then switched to the Allies. So it was very complicated in a way.
It was one of those
And
things where they they were allied with the Germans because they really didn't have a choice, right?
yeah, yep,
They
yep,
got
4 years,
conquered. It was either, hey, you're gonna join us now or you're going to die, right?
yep, 4 years of occupation. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go down another little rabbit hole here. Um, Earlier you were talking about the underestimated nations.
Mm-hmm.
I want to also point out that the Dutch were also very underestimated as well because they had a resistance force too, and they were occupied very early in the war,
Mm-hmm.
but they had a very good and willingly helping resistance, and they just really showered the Allies with praise when they got liberated.
They also we relied pretty heavily um on their intel when it came to the Dutch, right?
Oh yeah,
Like
yeah,
their militia, we relied pretty heavily on their intelligence.
yes,
and
Yeah,
they had some pretty gnarly snipers as well.
they have some good fighting.
They have a I can't remember. Man, this is gonna bug me, but off the top of my head, I can't remember his name. But they had a pretty notably efficient sniper that killed a lot of Germans, and
I
disrupted their forces pretty severely. I can't remember the name. Do you know who I'm talking about?
I honestly cannot think off the top of my head right now. Even with the French, they had a lot of people that were causing a lot of havoc behind the lines.
Mm-hmm. But we'll go to the next one. Hitler was a military genius.
False, false. Just what we were talking about earlier with him uh, not listening to his generals, him being too overconfident, making stupid decisions. Um, yeah, I don't think he was a military genius.
I can agree with that.
Uh, Maybe an
Japan
evil genius.
Japan could have invaded the United States.
I would say false because they didn't really have the resources. I mean, not to say that they wouldn't do more attacks like bombing, but as far as a full scale invasion, I don't see that happening. Definitely, it was a fear though that
Mm-hmm.
they would. Like that was a very big fear early in the war. And like I said, they were pretty close with the submarines, like
Mm-hmm.
both sides. So,
I
but I don't
agree.
think they.
I agree. I think a full scale invasion, they wouldn't have risked setting foot on American soil.
Yeah, because they were just so overly extended already as a width with the
Yeah,
islands.
and not just that, but I mean, even back in the 1940s, I mean, there were still more guns in America than people, and every single civilian had one, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, we would have fought. Yeah, we would have fought
the
tooth and nail.
I
Just
think at
like
that point we had more hunters in our nation that weren't overseas as
yeah,
soldiers than the Japanese army itself. So
yeah.
so it definitely would have been difficult, and there would have been a lot of resistance.
Oh yeah.
Um, I don't think the Japanese would have risked that at all. Um, Speaking of Japanese, the atomic bombs were unnecessary.
I would say partly true. Just like for the fact we were talking about, maybe if we did give them a little bit more time, they
Hmm.
could have surrendered another way. But like I said, like if it came down to it, I think the atomic bombs were an acceptable decision for saving American lives.
Knowing what you said earlier, yeah, I can agree with that. I also think that it's very, very dangerous to
Yeah,
have. I mean, we're the only country that has ever used an atomic bomb on another nation,
and war.
right?
Yeah.
So
So I'm gonna.
it's just so dangerous to have opened that Pandora's box, and now it's kind of developed into, well, now we have to be we, by doing that, as America, we kind of forced our own hand into supervising the world into not ever doing that again. Like that
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
we kind of became the world's nuke police, and that just hurt us so bad, I think.
I'm gonna go down to probably the biggest rabbit hole now. All right.
Let's
So
do it.
when it comes to this topic, I always think like so I've especially of lately I've been real into like looking at the universe as a bigger picture,
Hmm.
like universal. And I always compare this example when it comes to like nuclear weapons and how we're conducting ourselves now. Like I'm a believer that there's extraterrestrial life. I'm just gonna say it. But if they're looking at us as an intelligent species, they got to think like, why are we not working together to like better our planet? Or I know that sounds cheesy, but like literally working together to for our survival.
Hmm.
Like a lot of people don't look in the future of like our generation survival, but like you would think as a smart species, we would want to preserve our Earth, work together more in harmony, and it's just crazy to think, with the nuclear weapons and stuff, like why would we destroy ourselves?
Yeah.
Uh, but we may be the smartest species on the planet, but in the universe, we're probably looked at as pretty fucking stupid. I'm just gonna say it. Excuse my language, but
No, it's okay.
I don't know.
We
I just
we
had, that's always on my mind, so I just had.
I can agree with that. I can agree with that. I don't know. I know we're not alone, but I don't know if they know that we exist. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
There's absolutely the way I look at it is that there's absolutely no way that we're the only life in the universe, right?
yeah. You're gonna be
But
pretty naive.
yeah, but I mean, do I think that there are intelligent beings like us that know how to traverse the universe? I don't know. I don't know if
Yeah.
I can believe that. I don't think if there is life in well, I don't know if there is life in the universe if they know that we even exist.
I, oh, so there's so much I've been looking into this because, and even I don't mean to get on this topic too, but even from a religious standpoint, like I can see like if you look out into some of the views of space that we've seen, how beautiful that is. Even only a divine being could have created that.
Yeah.
And like I'm even like been like we're always discovering new things, like especially like with quantum physics right now. Um, that we're starting to find out like there's a lot of stuff that could be possible we never thought. Like before, we thought there weren't black holes. They were just kind of like science fiction, a myth. Then we discovered black holes. So it's like it's always
Hmm.
exciting to see where we're going to go. I mean, maybe not in our generation or even our century, but it's a refreshing fact to think that there's always so much changing stuff with science that
Hmm.
in future generations they can be seeing a lot more amazing stuff. All right. Well,
Yeah.
anyway, just we'll go back in.
No, I love the rabbit holes, man. I love the rabbit holes. Talking about one subject always leads you to more, so it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, let's see. So these are some questions that I pulled off of Discord, um, from my server. Why didn't Germany invade Britain?
Um, Probably for the fact like we were talking about, like they were just a little overstretched with the supply lines, and after Hitler dragged his feet and was just bombing, it was just too late at that time.
Hmm. Why did Italy perform so poorly?
Probably with the inner conflict, the civil war going on of wanting to be fascist, wanting to be more free from that,
Hmm.
and um, not the greatest generalship. Mussolini was, I think, maybe even worse than Hitler as a dictator. No, I can't say it like that. Not as a dictator, but more of like a military dictator.
There you go.
Uh,
Okay.
yeah,
I was about to say Hitler did some pretty
yeah, yeah,
gnarly
yeah,
things, man. Did
yeah,
some
yeah.
pretty
No, yeah.
gnarly things.
But in like their resources, they weren't as prominent as Germany, United States, Russia. So
Okay.
probably with all them factors combined.
Why did Finland fight the Soviets?
So the Soviets. This is also another part of the war. People don't realize. This is, I love it too. There's just so much going on that people, who knew they were fighting in Finland. A
Hmm.
lot of people know that, but the Russians wanted to stage some bases there in their country, and pretty much Finland was like, no, like we don't want you doing that. And then the Russians said, well, we want to anyway, so they went to war. It was called the Winter War, 1939, 1940. And they fought. I mean, the Russians had a lot of casualties, but just overwhelming force, and
Mm-hmm. It was
uh,
inevitable for sure.
inevitable that they would
Yeah.
prevail, which they did. Same thing. A lot of people don't know that the Germans occupied Norway as well.
Mm-hmm.
So,
What would have let the Axis win?
um, I
Or
think
a
if
better way to structure this question was, what would the Axis have had to do in order to win?
I feel like if the Soviet Union stayed with the Axis powers, now eventually, I think down the road, the Soviets and Germans would have ended up fighting each other anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I feel like having the Soviets with them would have definitely could have went another way.
What
And
made Russia? What made the Soviet Union split from Germany?
so they really didn't trust or like each other to begin with. It was actually like Hitler who blindsided them and decided to attack.
Really?
And they were actually very unprepared for the attack. That's why they got so it came so like they got so deep in the Russian territory. But yeah, Hitler decided he just he was feeling good with the other early military campaign victories and just thought, okay, well, I'm just going to attack the Russians too, and ultimately made probably the biggest mistake.
So, which battle was the real turning point?
Oh, this is a tough one for me. Um, I'm gonna say probably Guadalcanal, Stalingrad, D-Day. I cannot pick one, honestly. It's just so hard. It's just there's so much different factors. It's hard for me to pick,
Mm-hmm.
honestly.
That's fair. Okay. We're gonna go into a lightning round. So I'm gonna ask you a question, and you're going to answer it pretty quickly. Okay.
Okay,
Uh, favorite tank,
Pershing,
favorite general, Eisenhower, right?
Eisenhower,
Your favorite battle,
the Normandy hedgerows,
most underrated nation,
the Dutch,
Dutch. Okay. Most overrated commander. It can be on any level.
MacArthur.
Best World War II movie.
Ooh, we go by series or does it have to be movie?
It can be series.
I'm gonna say Band of Brothers and Pacific.
Best World War II book.
My personal favorite book, it's called Normandy 1944 by Dick Stoggill. It's very hard to get. You're gonna probably spend in the hundreds to get it. I actually just sold mine last week. Uh, it's just the way he writes from a soldier's perspective, and just the talent he has in immersing you in like actual war. It's just amazing. It's just the best book I ever read, personally.
Okay. The best World War II documentary.
Uh, there's a lot of good ones, but I say maybe Ken Burns' The War was a pretty good one for like getting the soldier's perspective and overall explaining it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And your favorite historical quote by um in the World War II era.
Um, I'm actually gonna go with Patton on this one. I always
Really?
love this quote. It just so he said it doesn't make you a hero to die for your country. What makes you a hero is to make the other bastard die for his. I always thought that was a great quote.
That is a pretty
And
great
then
quote.
I don't know the quote word from word, but essentially Eisenhower once said, "Eventually, no one will understand like futility and stupidity of war unless someone's been to war.
Okay.
That's pretty powerful too.
I
But yeah,
can
that
attest to
patent
that.
quote,
Yeah.
I always loved that patent.
Okay. What's one World War II opinion that gets you into arguments?
This is a tough one. Um, I wouldn't say maybe not opinion, so to speak, but like sometimes I get into arguments or it's a pet peeve of mine. Um, when people like try to like some people try like especially older people. Like if you say like a lot about World War II, they'll kind of brush you off and like there's like souvenir shop or antique shops I've been in where I was about to like drop like $1,000 or something dollars, and just from their attitude towards me, like it like turned me off, so I didn't buy from them. But I feel like they should give the younger generation more credit, and so there's some of us that actually do care and want to learn.
So
So it's probably
people, the older generation not taking you seriously would would be like your
yeah, and
biggest.
even other younger people who are into it too, they kind of like have a almost like this thing about like
Would you
they're
say
like
that a lot of these people are like MacArthur and Patton in a way where they're egotistical?
yeah, in a way, yeah, like I'm always excited to learn that someone else is into it, and but some people like I don't know, they kind of feel challenged in a way.
Mm-hmm.
It's just weird, but but yeah, I'm excited to like always collaborate with people on it.
What's one topic that historians still disagree on?
Probably the atom bomb, you know, the morality of it, the necessary of it. That's probably the literally the biggest bang.
Is there anything else that you can think of?
Um, I mean, there's always questions about like the strategies, like some of the that we talked about,
Mm-hmm.
like with the Battle of the Bulge, intelligence failure, the slow going to get involved with closing the Felice gap. So there's always arguments about that stuff, and
Okay. Is there anything that you've changed your mind about World War II?
so I would say change my perspective. So when I was younger, um, obviously, you with the cool battles and the cool weaponry, it's always, appealing. But as I got older, I just feel like there's a lot more deeper meaning to it. You know, um, I'm gonna go into a big spiel here. All right, I'm sorry.
Do it. Do it. By all means, do it.
No. So just from it always just amazed me, just like all everybody banding together. Now, before I say this, there's gonna be a lot of contradictions here, but I'm gonna wrap it up and so you understand. Um, People like getting together, the world getting together, the good to fight evil. Uh, that being said, the United States, the Allies, in no terms did not do anything evil. There was a lot of evil things we done during World War II and beyond. But just like that was, I feel like it's one of a necessary war. With the expansion
Mm-hmm.
of like Gnosticism, like the death camps, like it was definitely necessary. It was an honorable thing to like go to war for. The fact about fighting for your loved ones, resonated with me. Like uh, the things about like soldiers being like religious and like seeing divine events happening for them. Uh, these like citizen soldiers stepping up and like doing amazing feats. Like you look at the Medal of Honors, the Distinguished Service Cross, and there's so much that's not even talked about. Just like them, the camaraderie of like the units, like and the situations they were in prevailing. Also, another thing I like to talk about too is during the war, the military was segregated, as we know.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like this was also a big turning point. After World War II, the military became unsegregated. No matter if you're white, black, Mexican, Latino, Japanese. I think a lot of people seen once they got into a foxhole and they fought side by side, they seen that they fought just as hard and they can rely on them as a brother. And there was no really prejudice when it came to like down thick of combat. You know that
Absolutely. You know,
bonded people as a human species, and like that always really made me proud in a way. You know, like
I can attest to that. You know, my time in the service, we definitely really didn't see color. I mean, what was there? The only prejudice that you really seen was like as dark humor. You know, it wasn't like
yeah,
as
yeah,
serious. You know, and at the end of the day, there was only really one race and one color. The race is American, and the color is green. You know.
yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
that being said, like there definitely was a lot of racial tension early, like
Hmm.
the Southerners and the Northerners, and there was a lot of racial things that happened. Like I'm not naive to think that it was all holding hands and but towards the end of the war, you definitely seen a lot of guys that have been in war, change their view on humanity, and um, it's just it's just always like like I said in the beginning, like their personal stories, like that's always what captivated me.
Hmm.
Like these normal, ordinary young guys and older guys, but a lot of young guys that just like went out and just did, a lot of them enlisted and just did these amazing things, and it just always just always was got to me. And also too, leading in, I feel like everything after that was leading into everything that we're seeing from today, like the Cold
Absolutely.
War,
Yep.
because our mindset literally changed at the end of the war right to the Soviets. I mean, it was always in the back of our mind, like, let's take care of the Germans and Japanese
Do
first, but it was
do
always,
you think that it would have been the same with the Germans and Russians? Like if if the roles were reversed, right? Because we always had that tension with Russia even during World War II,
Mhm.
right? We didn't
Yeah,
really like them, but we tolerated them, and
yeah,
the enemy of my enemy is my friend, right?
yeah, yeah.
Do you think that if the roles were reversed and Russia would have stayed with Germany and won, do you think that it would have been Germany and Russia? And
100%.
would we have allied with Germany to defeat Russia?
So that second part is hard to say. I feel like definitely the Germans and the Russians would have fought. I'm not sure how alliances would have fell. It's very That's a very tough, intricate question. I really got to think on that one.
That's a very like interesting thing to
That's
think
yeah,
about, isn't it? Like
yeah. I'm not sure if
because
we would ally with them or not.
who would we as America align ourselves with more? Communist Russia or you know
Fascist Germany.
racist fascist Germany? Like
I feel like
both are
we would
evil, but
probably err.
what do you think is more evil? Like what do you think that we would have
Yeah,
thought was more evil as a country?
yeah. I feel like we definitely would if we wouldn't have got involved. I feel like we maybe wouldn't have got involved, but if we would, we'd probably go on the German side.
And then that even leads like would we have fought Germany afterwards, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. It's just alternate histories.
Yeah, it's real
That's a whole nother
fun.
topic.
It's a real fun thought exercise and fun to think about, you know. But
Do you want to go down the rabbit hole if we live in a simulation or not? No, I'm playing. I'm playing. 'Cause I don't. You ever hear
um
the man in the high castle?
yeah. Who's to say
So
though? Talk about the simulation real quick. Who's to say that this isn't like a simulation, right? We're calling like alternate realities
yeah,
simulations. You know, who's to say that that's not real?
yeah. There's actually a lot of talk about that. With the world universe being one giant computer. Because we don't know a lot about it's. We don't know a lot about quantum physics. Like we can only go so small to what we know scientifically now
Mm-hmm.
that we go beyond it in what they've been calling dark matter lately, which literally means we don't know what the fuck this is doing. Sorry
Yeah.
about my language.
No, it's okay.
But
I I
It's
don't know whether or not the world is like a big computer, right?
I don't yeah, I
But
personally don't think that, but I entertain the theory just because it's
I can
interesting.
entertain the theory. I think the better theory would be like if you mix both theories together, right? Like an alternate reality could be called a simulation. You know
Yeah,
what I
yeah.
mean?
I feel like a lot of has to do with like energy, like
Yeah,
make good and
absolutely.
just good, dark, good, like bad, dark, and good and bright energy.
Hmm.
Like, have you ever felt like just intuition, like inside you, like things like leading you towards a decision or like a thought? Like,
Absolutely, yeah.
for a big example too is like I don't know if you know what synchronicities are.
Hmm.
Like, there's so many things that happen like around me, like my spiritualism isn't more of like church based. It's more of like energy like in the world, like
Hmm.
good energy and bad energy. But like have you ever like just seen like or been thinking about something and like it pops up
Yeah.
or like thinking about
Like
someone and they contact you?
deja
It's,
vu or
yeah.
yeah, that
But
intuition.
yeah, if you really pay attention to it though, like you'll start noticing it a lot more and it's like really trippy. Like I'm actually gonna last night actually. I'll tell you one real quick. I I had this thing listed on eBay, and I was gonna sell it on there, but I decided not to. I felt like it would be more of a hassle to sell it on there, so I decided to take it off last night. And I had it up there for months. This morning, I woke up to someone on Marketplace coming to buy it later today. It's just so weird to me, like or like I was be thinking of like a song or thinking of an event and like shit like lines up to where it'll happen.
Hmm.
Now, a lot of it could be coincidence, but there's like so much of it happens sometimes. You're like, Jesus, like, wow. Like,
Yeah,
it's just
a lot
crazy.
of that happens with me, but more along the lines of like not materialistic items, but more like actual events that happen where
Yeah, yeah, that too. Yeah.
I think of something so much and then it just happens. And it's always the in my case it's always the bad things that happen. It's never the good things that happen.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
no, like it's always like for me it's like what if, what if, what if, what if, what if, and then I kind of like spoke it into existence and it just happens and I'm like, ah, shoot. You know?
Yep.
Yeah. But let's go
Um,
into a couple more things. My last question for you before we start wrapping things up and closing. Other than the generals and leaders that we spoke about, which historical figure deserves more recognition?
um, I'd probably say just in general the individual soldier. Like I can't stress enough like how important like these or even the people the home front.
Mm-hmm.
Like just the regular everyday person. Just as an example, we live in Lawrence County. Like we grew up in Lawrence County, right? Um, in the war on terror, we've lost, I believe, three individuals. Um, in Vietnam,
One of them was one of our good close friends.
yes, yeah, we knew personally. Yes, it
Mm-hmm.
was one of
Lucas's
our
brother.
friends. Yeah, Luke. Yeah, he his brother was in the 101st Airborne as a
Yeah.
staff sergeant. He was on his third deployment, and he ended up passing away. It's trippy too because right before he deployed, I actually had a conversation with him about World War II, like because he really liked studying it too, and like he was like, oh, when we get back, we'll talk more about it, and then,
Yeah.
eventually he ended up getting killed, but it was nice to know like he liked that too, and but yeah, he gave his life for our country, so rest in peace to him.
Absolutely.
Also, the other guy, I didn't know him personally. It was a corporal in the Marines. He got killed in 2006. My parents knew his parents, And he actually got a Bronze Star. He got
Mm.
killed while dragging someone and got shot by a sniper.
Wow.
So also Staff Sergeant Edward Mills and Corporal Elbert Gettings. Those were the two. So thank you for their service. Um, in Vietnam, I believe we lost 36 or
There's
37.
quite a few. Yeah.
36 or 37. In Korea, we lost 21. Now, this is where it just shows the scale of magnitude. In World War II, Lawrence County lost 423 people in the war.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and this literally affected everybody. And I'll use my great grandmother as an example. Her three brothers served during the war. Her one brother was a tail gunner in the Air Force, and she remembers he would be driving like this with the steering wheel because some flak had damaged nerves in his pinky. Her other brother was in the field artillery. She said he never talked about it. He was very broken up about some things like PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
He said he walked with a limp, but she never found out what happened. He actually wanted to adopt a little Belgium girl. There was an orphan Belgium girl, but of course the army would not let her send him home. Her other brother was a combat engineer. But also, to that being said, her next door neighbor, their friend, 23-year-old, he got killed in the Philippines. Like her next door neighbor. One of their other brother's good friends, he got killed while serving with an armored infantry battalion in Normandy. And their post boy, he was 19 years old. He got killed serving with the 8th Infantry Division in the Brittany campaign.
Mm.
Um, so like it just shows you how much like it affected everybody. My grandma was only she was a little girl during this time, so she seen it through the eyes as a little girl. She was like 10 or 11 around there. So just shows you the scale of how it affected everybody, you know.
Yeah.
Also, wait, I wanted to say something else too. Oh, it just had in my head. I lost it. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Maybe it'll come back to you, and before we end, if it does, then we can
Yeah.
go back to that point. Um, I just wanted to go over some book and resource recommendations that you may have, especially for beginners that are just starting off getting interested in World War II. So, what are some like the top three or top five book recommendations that you have for beginners?
So like I said, me personally, I love the memoirs, but if you want to like get more of an overall view,
Mm-hmm.
um, some better ones are like Rick Atkinson, the Liberation trilogy. Kind of is a brief overall of like the war. Tom Holland has a lot of good books about like campaigns, especially. Um, some of the older ones are like Carlo. I think Carlo Diestes is one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's so many. I know I'm gonna forget a lot. Um, I mean Stephen Ambrose. I do like a lot of his work, but some of it I feel like he could brush up a little bit better historical accuracy. But there's so many books out there. I would say just pick an area to start with and just expand from there. You
Yeah,
know,
and
like
after this episode, I'll get with you, and if you can go ahead and just give me a list of like your personal like top five of your personal
yeah,
favorites, and I'll link them in the bio below. But
yeah,
let's see.
yeah. There's just so much to learn.
What are some of the best documentaries or docu-series that you could recommend someone just starting out to watch?
So something I really enjoy lately is like these channels on YouTube about like hit interviews with veterans, which I really encourage to always. If you see a World War II veteran, go up and just talk to them because pretty soon we're gonna not have these people.
Well, there's not many of them
Like
left.
literally, like yeah, literally like the last like 5 or 10 years they're gonna be gone, if not sooner. So just talking to them is just such a honor and a treat, you know, to get their glimpse. Um, I try to talk to as many as you can. So watching the interviews on YouTube is very.
Do you
I
have
feel
any
like it's
specific
something.
YouTube channels that you could recommend?
Yeah, there's this kid named Rishi something. He interviews World War II veterans. I'll have to write this stuff down and send it to you because I can't think
Okay,
of it off the top of my head.
sure.
But there's a lot of other people like too. There's another guy on Facebook and Instagram that's a World War II nerd as well. Now I didn't even know about him before I made my World War II nerd with the second D. So I don't want to act like I'm biting, but I want to shout him out too. He's a good guy.
Okay.
There's another young kid. He's 14. His name is GI Jive, and I'm shouting him out too because he's a younger generation that's still bringing in the war. Um, Andrew Biggio, he's I think an Iraq veteran. He kind of has a big campaign going right now with bringing veterans together and doing tours. And there's plenty of other people I can't think of right now, but always make sure to talk to veterans. And
Absolutely.
I've talked to so many veterans, but I'm going to tell one story real quick that I was at Walmart and I seen this veteran, buy his hat. So of course, I went and talked to him, and he's telling me some stories, and I'm like, "Oh, have you ever been wounded before?" And I haven't even noticed, but on his chin it was all red right here. He said he was riding on a tank in Germany, and a Panzerfaust, which is like a German bazooka,
Mm-hmm.
hit the tank, and piece of shrapnel just took out most of his lower chin
Oh
here and
wow.
jaw, and it was all reconstructed. He said the medic that was carrying him back got shot through the eye, and then they brought him into the room and ended up patching him up. But just the stuff these guys seen. Oh, that's what I wanted to cover too. That brings me to it. PTSD. So a lot of people obviously today suffer with PTSD from military, but during World War II, it was seen as combat fatigue, and they did not like to talk about it as much. A lot of people went their whole lives withholding all that in, or a lot of people went to the end of their lives until they finally talked about it. So, as you know, it's a good thing now that like we have more understanding of that to be able to help our veterans because war is hell. That's another thing I want to say. I mean, I've never personally been to war, um, but being around, studying it, these men just went through horrible things, along with it. And I want to make that first and foremost, not to glorify, because war is hell. It's a terrible thing. Civilians, you get caught up in it, kids, and just wanted to stress that point too.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, yeah, back to PTSD. Since you brought it up, uh, it's a difficult thing. It's definitely a difficult thing. I suffer from it myself, and it's not easy to talk about, but sometimes it's necessary. And
Oh yeah,
back in the 40s, I think up until the 60s,
yeah,
is when they stopped calling it war fatigue, and yeah, it's just it's very difficult to diagnose, especially back then. It was difficult to diagnose, and
yeah,
um, it's a super stressful and annoying thing to deal with. But with the technology and medical industry that we have now, it's I don't want to say easy, but it's easier.
yeah.
Um,
I feel like
and for all of you
just the
veterans
government.
out there that are watching, I do highly recommend if you ever feel that you know are on the edge and you can't you know deal with the stress and the anxiety, please go seek help. um yeah, I'm tired of seeing and reading about my brothers and sisters, that perish from it. um Give me one
Yeah,
second. My headset
our
died.
government. Oh, yeah, our government definitely needs to help our veterans a lot more. Uh, and we're waiting. I guess I can tell some more stories. So I actually used to get online and find emails and phone numbers and try to contact veterans. A lot of times, sometimes I got veterans. I have veterans send me stuff. Like I have a lot of stories. I got veterans' wives and significant others and family telling me some stories too, which is pretty cool. Um,
Okay, and I'm back.
when you were gone, speaking, I was telling just the audience that I used to try to find phone numbers and emails online. Okay. I used to try to find their numbers and stuff online and call them. And I actually talked to a few veterans, talked to their families. I actually had people send me stuff too, because they said that no one else really wanted it and they knew it'd be in good hands. I actually have a pretty decent collection, and I'm still growing. Um, that's one of my other favorite things to do is collect memorabilia. I got a lot of medals, rifle, pistol. I got every single division patch, ribbons,
Hmm.
bayonet, you name it. I just try to collect it.
Yeah, it's a fun hobby. It's a fun thing to do. A lot of
And
my collection is my own personal stuff.
yeah,
But yeah.
actually, tomorrow, I don't know. There's this thing called D-Day Conneaut in Ohio. Every year they have this. It's like a big, kind of like a convention for World War II. There's vendors. Sometimes there's veterans. There's like other people with book signings. There's food, but then they do a big giant reenactment of the D-Day landings on a beach. Like these reenactors will do it, and me and my brother are going tomorrow. He went with me last year, and he actually loved it. Like
Okay.
he's coming with me again,
And
and
that's
it's
at
just going to be a
Conneaut
great.
Lake.
It's well, it's Conneaut, Ohio, because there's Conneaut Lakes in Pennsylvania, I believe.
Ah, okay.
Uh, but it's called Conneaut, Ohio, D-Day Conneaut. If you look it up, you'll be able to see it. But it's such a great event. I'm probably about to spend so much money. I'm trying not to think about it now
you
because
you've been saving up for it.
yeah, I'm trying not to think about how much money I'm gonna spend.
Okay,
But
okay.
yeah, it's gonna be a good time.
Um, yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. Are there any final thoughts that you have in closing?
Yeah, just I encourage people to learn more about, well, not even just World War II, but even history in general. Because history is important, so we don't repeat the same mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important to learn the history to affect our present, to affect our present, to ultimately affect our future for the better. If that makes sense.
Absolutely, it
So
does.
other points. I used to strictly just read World War II, but I've expanded now. To occasionally, I'll pick up a book about the Civil War. Um, Recently, I started reading about a couple presidents. Early American politics. Um, so it's always good to expand your knowledge, but World War II will always still be my go-to.
Absolutely. And lastly, where can any of the listeners follow you in your work?
So I have an Instagram that I started called World War II Nerd. It's capital WW2, the number two, NERD extra D, so two D's. I was actually doing really good on it for a while. I'm not gonna lie, I've been slacking on it with between work. I work a couple jobs. I got a crazy 4-year-old at home, another one coming. So I definitely want to get back to it more. So I really do apologize for not posting more content like I was, and it does bother me. But that's my main thing, and I have a Facebook World War II nerd that I kind of just just to have. I'm more of an old soul. Like I was telling you, I'm more of an old soul, so I'm not very good technologically. Like there's a lot more I would want to do, but the only thing I got really right now is my that Instagram, and anybody can always contact me on there if you want to talk or connect or anything. I'm not Hollywood.
Absolutely. And hopefully we can have you on as the co-host more often. Next week on Wednesday is when I'm planning to have the next episode, and I have a current active duty Chief Warrant Officer 3, who is a chopper pilot, going to be
Oh,
um, our next guest. So I'm looking forward to that as well. Dustin, aka World War II nerd, thank you so much for joining me on today's episode, our first episode ever of Restoravet History Unfiltered, our deep dive into World War II. Thank you so much.
oh, thank you. It's been a pleasure, and I'll be glad to be back, man.
Awesome.
It's been really great.
All right, and to you, the listeners, thank you so much for joining us. It was an honor, and we're still, like I said, this is our first ever podcast. This is my first time ever doing anything like this. I'm just some dumb infantryman that retired and decided to create his own thing. So I appreciate you guys joining in and listening. Until next time, thank you so much.